So hello, everyone. Glad you could join us on this very special Halloween episode of the Hollywood Sound Museum webinars. And my guest today, I'm very honored to have him. He's a mythical.
I'm a wizard.
He's a wizard. Yes, he's quite an interesting character. I've been wanting to have him on for years.
You've been quite pesky, actually, Mr. Lee.
I know. I'm so sorry. Well, tracking down your email was very difficult for the first part.
Intentionally.
Yeah. Well, it changes very often. So.
Well, this digital folderol. I like the old-fashioned way when you send it with a wax seal.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember you've been around for a while. Anyway, I'm sorry.
A lot of people know that seals used to be made of wax. Now they're all flesh and blood. But yeah,
I know they're out there in the ocean having fun and cavorting.
Right, wax floats, and they were delightful creatures. You should just stick a wick in it, and there was a candle.
I understand, Mr. Professor
Bollyaudio
Noisart. Thank you so much for attending and discussing your brilliant work. As the creator of sound, which I'm very fascinated to hear stories about. Let's start at the very beginning. How exactly did you create sound, and when was this?
Well, in the beginning, it was a big blank slate. You know, the creator is like, I'm going to give you sound. And I said, what? He said, exactly. Because it wasn't invented yet, so I didn't know what the hell he was talking about because I couldn't hear him. So he said, take vibrations and make them something that you can ascertain with an organ that would ascertain it. And I said, absolutely. That's what the hell whatever. And he let me do whatever the hell I want.
I understand.
So I came up with sound, which is basically vibrations. What do you think about it? Everything, light's a vibration, sound's a vibration, everything's a vibration. I just got that one little bit of the spectrum that, oh goodness, that is the what you humans call the audio spectrum.
Okay, so you're not necessarily human. Is that what you're implying by that last little?
Oh no.
Okay,
please don't paint me with that brush.
All right, I'll leave it at that then, sir. All right. I understand. Yes, you're smoking. I've got my little vice here, so fair enough.
Yes, marvelous.
So let's continue this narrative here. Yes. What were some of the early developmental things that you went through when you created sound, basically? What were some of the first sounds that you created?
That was a very good question. The first sound I created was just a
It was
Yes, it was a sound I made when I started thinking about what to make for sound.
I see. Yes. And then you heard yourself, and then you started thinking of the possibilities.
The Big Bang theory. This is the little hum theory.
I see. I gotcha. Okay.
Yes. And then I just got to do anything. I mean, I got to play around with it. And as you can see, there's a plethora of sounds. In fact, there's sounds that you humans can't even hear. Some of my best work you can't even hear.
Oh, really? That's fascinating.
Yes.
I would love to hear that. Well, you know that I am developing a sound museum, which you probably
know. So
I would love to include some. What are some of the things that you would offer to a sound museum that people might not be aware of, or and not necessarily sound, but how they were made and that sort of thing?
Well, the Big Bang was the first big sound.
I understand. I was
very loud. It's actually immeasurable by your tiny human ears. Little tiny things.
I wouldn't expect there to be any recordings of this, are there?
No, there was no recording equipment. No.
Okay.
And it was very loud.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
And then the creator started making planets. Every planet has its own sound. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, really?
Everything that exists has a sound. It vibrates. If it's not vibrating, it's dead. So essentially, again, you humans with your tiny little ears and your tiny little hearing capacities cannot fathom these things, but I can.
This is fascinating.
In fact, that's why the audio unit is called Hertz. Not because of some Heinrich Hertz. That's bollocks. It's because most sound hurts my ears because I can hear everything.
I see. That must be very difficult. Have you learned to sift through it all and just sort of focus on what you're, I mean,
It's
obviously
exactly that's what
I'm talking to.
all this gray matters is up there
I
is doing
understand.
is focusing on your tiny little squeaky voice and not hearing all the angst and drama that's going on your planet right now.
Well, yeah, there's quite a bit of that. Yes. Thank you
It's
for
the quintessential
for
needle
noticing.
in the haystack, except the needle is your tiny little squeaky voice, and the haystack is everything that's vibrating on Earth,
I appreciate that, sir.
which is a lot.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate you focusing for a few moments so we could have this wonderful chat. Now, this must have been many, many, many years, eons ago that you did this.
Yes.
We recently had a guest on our show, Mr. Gary Rydstrom, who
yes,
created,
big fan.
he created the sounds of the dinosaurs in the movie. Now, did he get it right, or is this something
Well,
that you would take?
I will say this: dinosaurs had lovely singing voices.
Oh, really?
Everyone gives them a roar or a bellow. But you know how birds are beautiful singing voices? Birds
Absolutely. Well, some of them, yes.
Some of them, well, many of them actually. but the dinosaurs actually were beautiful singers, and they would do well. They didn't call it a quartet because they didn't have numbers. But they would get together and do these reptilian operas, I suppose you would call it, and lovely singing voices. They never get that right, and it's always like a snarling. It's sort of like if you did if you never heard of a dog, and all you had the dogs in your film because you were an alien, and all your dogs just went. I was like, yes, they make that noise, but there's so many other beautiful noises dogs make.
I see. I understand.
But I will say Gary got a part of the spectrum very, very, very close.
Oh yeah, was there a particular?
I inspired him. You see, I'm like a muse for audio people, audio musicians, and audio folks, anyone dealing with sound. I come to them not in this form. No, this is not very appealing to most people, but it's comfortable, mainly because of this big robe and floppy hat.
It looks very comfy. Yes,
but it's very comfortable. Well, when everything's vibrating around you, you want loose clothing, or else it might lend me to just be like, which is not pleasant.
No, I can see how that wouldn't be. Yeah,
young man.
Now, so the recording process of sounds, the way that we have stored sounds, basically started around the turn of the century. Before that, there is a huge amount of sounds that we've never experienced whatsoever, but you have had the pleasure or otherwise to experience. Yes. So what are some of these fascinating things that I mean, there's just so much out there that I could possibly think of.
Charlemagne, Charles the Great, as you English call him, but yes. Charlemagne in the French. Very funny voice, conquered half the world. Talked like a little girl. Hilarious.
Did you do that on purpose for some certain people? Just
I don't necessarily control it, but I did have a hand in it, if you will. Okay. I just thought it'd be funny if this great conqueror just sounded like a little girl. He's there giving orders like, I want everybody, the terrible lisp. But lovely fellow, I mean, quite motivated. It just goes to show you what you can do despite the handicaps that the life may have given you. So again, there's no recordings of Charles. No, Chucky, we called him, little Chucky.
I see.
But a wonderful fellow, but yes, a voice that could peel paint or make you laugh. If you could have a machine and go back and film him, no one today would take him seriously.
We'd have to loop him. Yes, I understand.
Yes, absolutely. We'd have to loop him, as you say. Dub him.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you're up on the lingo. That's helpful.
Get someone with a sexy voice like that, Georgie Clooney.
Oh yeah, he could do it.
Well, Patrick Warburton, he's got a great voice. His voice commands respect and dignity.
Yeah, I'll drink to that.
The name of my firstborn child, Dignity.
Oh yes, okay. And what did he sound like?
Well, he's still around. I mean.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Okay. All right.
I've decided when I started having children with some of the other muses, I decided to give them smaller tasks, because all of sound is a big job. I mean, it's not just earth, it's everything.
Yes, it can be pretty.
So I gave him the task of squeaks.
Oh, I see.
Dignity is anything that squeaks, whether it's a little mouse or a door hinge, or if you get a nail and you're just kind of twisting a little bit and it kind of squeaks, or like when you get a balloon and you rub your fingers over it. He's in charge of squeaks.
So have you delegated other sounds like that, or is
many?
Because I can imagine it's such a huge thing.
It is. It's huge. Yeah. I've delegated many of the sounds. Booms I gave to one of my ex-wives.
Okay. Booms. Yes, I was going to ask you about.
Well, I like a girl with big booms. That's why I married her. But then she was so good at them that I let her take care of all the booms. That's an audio joke.
I get
true.
Yes,
factual.
Yes.
Factual. It's not disrespectful.
Oh,
factual.
I wouldn't argue the point, sir. But I'm very fascinated about this because this is all new to me, of course, and I'm just fascinated.
You better get with the program, Sonny. You've got a sound museum.
I do. Yeah, I have so much to learn, and I appreciate the time you're giving. What about naturalistic sounds out in the world? Surf is a wonderful, nice, loud, relaxing sound. How did you work on that? Yes, well,
first of all, speaking of natural sounds, I want to settle this debate.
Please.
If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, of course it makes a sound, you idiots! What sort of special drink are you all drinking now? That's even a philosophical question.
But you could have had an easy out there. You could have taken it for what they were not bothered with.
Preposterous, balderdash, ballyhoo. BS, as your cowboys say.
I get it.
The tree makes a lovely sound because I made it. I don't care if no one's there to hear it. It still makes a lovely and the crunching and the leaves fluttering. It's a beautiful noise.
Oh, I'm a big fan of wood crunches. Yeah, they've got this
splintery,
fibrous.
Job.
Yeah.
A lot of celery sticks gave their lives for crunchy noises in the movies.
That's very true. That's very true. One of our last guests demonstrated that herself. What about something like thunder? Because that's a biggie.
That's a biggie.
Did you have that in mind before you created that sound, or did you just decide on?
It's interesting you bring it up after you bring up the sound of surf, because technically they're very similar. They're both large amounts of water bashing together.
Yeah. Okay.
Thunder is clouds, huge tons and tons of water in the atmosphere, in a cloud-like form. Obviously, is why they're called clouds.
Yeah.
And it smashes together and makes a thunder, as you call it, which is basically a bigger version of what happens when a wave crashes on the shore, or a wave crashes on itself in the middle of the sea. It's all water-based. Water's lovely for making noises. I mean, everything from the little drip, little.
See there.
Yes, that was a fun one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing it in action right there.
And then you get rain on a roof, and then you get water rushing, and then you go all the way up to thunder and big waves crashing. It's all water. Water. Beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Good. Now, with this ability, I would imagine it would be very difficult to resist pranking some people and making fun with some people, creating sounds for something that isn't necessarily there. Have you ever abused your powers, sir? Please be honest.
I plead the fifth.
All right.
And by pleading the fifth, I mean Charles the Fifth. I like having fun with guys named Charles.
You're back with Charles.
We replaced his voice with that of a chicken for a whole month.
Oh yeah, how did that go? Was he involved in anything crucial at the time?
Well,
were you feeling spiteful?
Of course, they hid it from the court and the people because they didn't want to know that Chucky Chicken, as we call him, he's there trying to proclaim laws. It was hilarious. The more frustrated he got, the more he would cluck. Is where the phrase "mother clucker" came from, because he would cluck so loudly. Fits. We joked, the other muses and I, that he was probably going to lay an egg, but he did not. No, but yes, we changed his voice with that of a chicken.
That's fascinating.
But just for a month. So his court kept him hidden, and he wrote things out, and then we, after a while, the joke wears off and it's not so funny.
I understand. I
think they burnt some witches, though. Sad. Really, it wasn't their fault. They did laugh. he wasn't kind to witches, and no one was back then. Lovely people, witches. I'm very fond of them.
Yes.
But yes, the British, the English back then were unusually unkind to witches, and so they would blame them for everything, including Charles sounding like a chicken. So I do feel badly about that.
I understand. I understand. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have been able to resist the urge to play with that. As
Screaming goats, that's another one.
Screaming goats, yes. I actually am quite fond of a recording I have of a screaming goat. Yeah.
That was a fun one. We've kept that just because it scares the heck out of people.
When you were creating the sounds of different animals, I mean, did you
Yes.
have anything specific in mind for some of them, or did you just go with your own whimsy there?
We just kind of went nuts. We just kind of had fun. Kookaburras, very different from humpback whales, obviously.
Yes, I was going to say some aquatic animals don't seem to have any sound whatsoever.
Oh, no, they do.
Okay.
Oh, they do.
Oh,
yeah, they click a lot. A lot of clicking going on.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever listened to a hydrophone? It's just lots of clicking.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, it's dreadfully boring.
Well, I just know that there's some fish that don't necessarily have any sounds.
Well,
but,
they don't have vocal cords, but
Yeah.
they make sounds.
mhm. All right.
Sharks fart horribly.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yes, terrible farters, the sharks.
I will have to find a
But
recording
it doesn't.
of that.
There's no gas involved, so you can't hear it. But it's a liquid. It's a liquidy sound. I mean, if you ate garbage and license plates and tennis shoes and all the stuff, you'd be farting up a storm too.
Was there-
funny little noise.
Did you have any?
Shark farts. Good name for a band, actually.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Totally.
That's not bad.
Like a surf band.
Did you have any desire to give any animals a voice like a human voice? Because that's something that people have.
Well, there's a number of
Constant-
birds. I remember I told you birds could sing, or dinosaurs. And the birds, as you know, I'm sure you're well aware that birds are essentially mostly what's left of the dinosaurs. And some birds mimic human speech to the point of perfection. In fact, the African gray
Yes.
is highly regarded as being not only an amazing mimic, but there's been a very extensive study with a bird named Alex, with Dr. Irene Pepperberg, I believe her name was. And he not only could make all these human utterances and words, but he had cognition. He knew what he was saying.
See, that's the key thing right there. Fascinating. Yes, I know.
What's funny is you humans use English use the phrase bird brain, which is actually a compliment. Birds are very smart considering the size of their brains, the amount of knowledge they have.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. But yes,
I bet you didn't think you'd learn anything, did you? Today, did you, Skippy?
I'm fascinated. Yes. No, I'm thrilled that you're here, and I'm learning quite a bit actually.
Marvelous.
Yes. We just came out of Halloween yesterday, and today is Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, and a lot of spooky sounds out there that people are playing. You must have had the awareness that some of these sounds you were making were very frightening. Were you aware of this when you created it? Yeah, that's great.
I was trying to make it spooky.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for keeping it on point. Was there anything that comes to mind about as a sound editor, I have one favorite scary sound of a cat attack making a whiplash kind of roar, and you must have had awareness.
As they say, it's in the ear of the behearer.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a baby crocodile, mama crocodile grunt is the sweetest sound in the world. But if you're a swimmer in Australia and you hear a salty grunting and growling, you're probably going to relieve yourself. So it really is, like I said, in the ear of the behearer.
I understand.
So I don't come out to create a sound that's intentionally to scare humans, but a lion's roar is there to establish dominance and also to be heard across the Serengeti.
That's true. Well,
Yes, so it's all a function.
Some people,
but I would say nothing is there to terrify.
Well, some people could say that lightning and thunder could be a very scary sound to some people at certain
Oh,
points.
I love it. They're some of my favorite noises.
Oh, I'm a fan myself. I'm just sort of speaking.
Well, I can't control what people are scared of. Some people are terrified from bubble wrap being popped. Other people like get off on it and put the ASMR and listen to it for hours and enjoy themselves in an odd manner that I won't get into, but I have no control over that.
There's a fetish for everything.
I just make the sounds, ma'am. I don't.
I understand. If there's anyone out there in our audience, we've got quite a few attendees. If anyone has a question for Professor,
I apologize.
No. I'm just saying I want to make sure that people get a chance to share your wisdom here.
Yes.
Yes.
AMA, as they say on the Reddit.
Now,
anything.
When people start inventing things like the automobile and computers and things like that, I would imagine that your work is on overtime in some of those instances.
Well, it depends. A lot of times it's based on things I've already invented, kind of mashed up in a new way.
I see.
But yes, when they invent something absolutely new that's never been done before, nuclear fusion. Case in point.
Did that throw you for a loop? What did you?
Well, no, because the sun has been making nuclear fusion noises for billions of years.
Yes.
So when they do it down here, it's a sound you will have never heard, but up, out in space, if you're standing on the surface of the sun, which I do not recommend, you guys go poof like a little marshmallow. But it's a very unique noise, and you probably, if you're a human, would only hear it once for a very short time, and then you'd go meet my boss.
I understand. Now, do you actually have a library of some of these that you can draw from, like me as a sound editor for films, on a very smaller scale than what you do? I have a collection of sounds that I can reuse.
Well, it's not books, if that's what you mean, a library.
No. Well, you have a very nice one behind you, obviously.
Well, that's just my light reading material, because, a lot of time I'm just sitting around enjoying a nice pipe and listening to any manner of things. But no, it's actually, the sounds themselves are kept, as you will, in a library, but they're kept in little jars.
Oh, fascinating.
Yes.
Fascinating. There must be countless amounts of them.
Well, when people do that, the musical glasses, and they lick in it. So that the sound is encoded into the jar. There's nothing in the jar. It's just if you roll and then you get the sound.
That's fascinating.
Because it never goes away. You don't have to replenish. There's no batteries involved. It's just a vibration, as we've established earlier in this conversation. So it's just, you set up the vibration and it makes the noise, and then we can apply it or use it wherever we like.
That's fascinating.
Yes,
isn't it? It's like the magic rings in that movie the Time Machine. Yeah.
And the time, you know what? Yeah. They sort of stole the idea.
Oh, I see.
But the thing is, those rings, you have to spin them. This just sits there. You do all the work.
Yeah, that's right. And those rings, they all sound like Paul Frees anyway. So
I love Paul Frees.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Good job giving him that voice, by the way. So I commend you. I commend you. We have a couple questions coming in.
Yes.
I would like some, since we only have about 5 or 8 more minutes.
I'm a 56 extra long. If they're curious.
I'm going to let that sit there. One question coming in is, how did you make whales and dolphins sing? That would be a fact. We almost touched on this earlier, but.
Well, how did I? Well, I didn't make them sing. They wanted to sing, and so I devised a pretty little voice for them. But essentially, we got them started by tickling their bellies.
Oh, fascinating.
Well, when you give a creature a voice, it doesn't necessarily mean they know how to use it. Like if you give a child a violin, doesn't mean they know how to play it. I mean, they can make noise with it. So when you give these creatures beautiful voices like whales and dolphins, and they just kind of, they squawk and burp and then you've got to teach them. I find it's enjoyable for both parties if you tickle their tummies.
I can imagine that.
And then it gets a reaction out of them that it's sort of like when you're tickled, and any creature actually is tickled, except planets. Planets, you can't really tickle them. But you can make them vibrate if you put enough explosive devices on them. They can make a sound, but it's not pleasant. Anyway,
I don't think we'd recommend that. Don't do that at home. No, don't. No,
tickling, particularly cetacean, dolphins and whales, a very, very, very effective way to get them to, because it pushes them to make noises that is sort of unconsciously, if you will. It's not like, I think I'll go, but you start tickling them and they go, and it comes out like that, and they enjoy it because they're getting tickled, and then they learn what they can do, and then they run with it. like, teach a kid the piano keyboard and you get Mozart or
I see that.
Beethoven. Yeah, so
I
same
get that.
thing. Same
Makes
thing.
perfect sense.
Good question. Who asked that?
Right. Kira Wright did.
Thank you,
Yes.
Kara.
Yes.
I shall make the rest of your year sound beautiful.
There you go. And another question from our friend of ours, actually a subscriber to the museum, one of our members,
Excellent.
Mr. Israel. What is the sound of the internet, he says?
Ooh.
That's a very, because that could be almost anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and the closest thing to describe it in sounds you're familiar with is like if you took a billion hornets nests and combine it with a billion R2D2s, all doing that kind of thing that he does with the, but put it on like a fast track to like a million repeats a second, and you mash that all together. That's what it's. It's a noisy thing.
I'm glad that we don't have an opportunity to hear that.
Yeah, you wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I understand.
No, it'd be good for a torture device, though.
I understand. There must be countless noises and sounds that we are never meant to hear.
Isn't that sad?
Actually,
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, that's fascinating, though. I do you occasionally sneak one out there for a few? There's always stories about people out in the middle of the desert who get visited by creatures from another planet who have no proof for anyone whatsoever. Do you ever find do you ever feel wicked enough to bless or curse some poor human with some of your work that has never been heard before?
There's a reason that aliens, most of them, communicate telepathically, because they have absurd voices. No one would take them seriously. If they came down and said, take us to your leader or whatever, and the ridiculous little voices they have, it's like, you'd be like, oh, please, come on. You didn't make this spacecraft, did you? Something that sounds like, I guess goes back to Charles the Great. Nobody, but again, they weren't recording things and people would see his armies and take him seriously. But you come down in a craft and you land and you abduct some poor person and start shoving things up their behinds, but you go, they'll just start laughing at you. And, nobody likes to be laughed at.
No.
So that is why they've kind of done an end run around me. They do the telepathy, as it's called, where you hear a voice that's actually in your own head and they just manipulate it. Really just communicating with thought. Clever little buggers, I must say.
Now, how do you feel about some of these people, like I said, Gary Rydstrom, and there's also Ben Burt and some other very brilliant sound effects designers. They're musicians that create music and all that. They are basically creating their own sounds. Do you actually secretly have a hand in any of that, or are they genuinely creating their own work?
Stephen, let me put you straight.
Please.
I invented the box of crayons, and they do what they want with it.
Okay.
So I couldn't be bothered to sit there every day. Old Benji Burt was making, hitting the power lines to make it's like, good for him. I made power lines go, and he played with it. God bless him. It's like, with colors, not my forte, but whoever invented blue didn't go to Leonardo da Vinci and say, mix a little blue with a little. He just went, here's the box of crayons, here's the colors, have at it. The same thing with you clever sound designers. I created the palette, if you will, and then you all have fun with it, and it gives me great joy.
That's fascinating. That's good to hear. I appreciate.
Yeah, I want you to have fun. I don't want to be. It's not have a finger in every pie. First of all, I don't have that many fingers. Secondly, who wants pie on their fingers?
I like pie, to be honest.
Oh, I love pie.
Isn't pie wonderful?
Pie has a sound. Pumpkin pie has a particularly lovely sound.
I was going to ask if you were privy to the inventor of pie, but yeah.
Oh, it just sounds pretty.
It does. All right.
You've heard the phrase as pretty sounding as a pie. Oh, you probably haven't.
As pretty as pie. Yeah, I've heard a variation of that, I believe.
I'll say things like pretty as a picture.
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Time has no meaning to me.
I can imagine you've been around for.
I'm an eternal being. I exist as long as sound. I mean, almost eternal, technically.
And we are all grateful for your work, sir. And thank you.
Oh, bless you all. May you all have very attractive noises in your ears for the next few months.
I certainly hope so, or I
Don't
would
listen
be.
to the news. I would say don't listen to the news.
No, 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 no. I wish we could have told people that years ago. Um, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Let's have you on next year too, if we can. I
Marvelous, marvelous.
appreciate
Everyone
this.
go make a joyful noise unto whichever being you believe in, because first of all, it's fun. Second of all, it's like it tickles my belly.
There you go.
There you go.
And who wouldn't want to tickle this man's belly? I tell you.
As we say in the sound business, hear you later.
That's right. Thank you, everyone who attended this very silly conversation. And thank you to my dear friend, Kirk Thatcher, who helped orchestrate this conversation. Bless you all. Thank you. Hope you had a happy Halloween and keep listening. Thank you, Professor. See ya.
Bless you all.